Welcome to the Slavic Bestiary. Here I will tell you about the worst beasts and demons that have been living on the Slavic lands for centuries. Lalek is a swamp demon looking like an oversized green swallow with a large head and a long curved beak. It emitted a thin wailing sound called a lel, somewhat similar to the whimpering of a baby. It was said that in pagan times the creature called out with this strange, disturbing cry, the souls of dead people, and led them to the underworld. It was also whispered that when the bird sits over someone's head, such a person would soon die. Lalek was able to drill into the mind and lead people to evil deeds and even suicide. Some people lost their minds because of him and walked around the world as insane. Sometimes the bird, pretending to be wounded, would hypnotize victims and lure them to the impassable molting grounds. There, it would pick itself up from the ground, sit on a branch and laughed in a human voice, watching as the deceived by him miserable in the mud could not get out, bitten by leeches and venomous insects. The Iron Man was a Polish demon living in the local iron ore-rich swamps and bogs, sometimes found in other areas of the country as well. It looked like a giant crawler with hard and cool skin reminiscent of metal. This ruthless and cruel creature sat at the bottom of the bog and dragged any prey wading near its hiding place below the surface. Even children were not spared in the process. Not surprisingly, he was hunted like a wild animal. However, it was extremely difficult to capture him because despite his clumsy appearance, the Iron Man remained an extremely clever and cunning creature, but sometimes he too was caught in nets. Locked in a sturdy cage, he later served as a diversionary attraction for people or ended up as a trophy at the court of a local ruler. Kmok is a monster from ancient times, the memory of which has survived longest in the areas of Greater Poland, although it has not been seen there for centuries either. Its winged silhouette, stretched on the night sky, already scares only in stories. Ziu was an old pagan forest demon that inhabited the darkest forests of Rus. He assumed enormous size, sometimes measuring up to 4 meters in height. He was sometimes very dangerous to lone travelers. Hearing an oncoming merchant, it lurked among the spreading boughs of an oak tree and waited. When the victim was right below him, he would pounce on it with a piercing, hellish shriek, tearing the terrified wretch apart before he realized what was happening. Aitwak is a Lithuanian household spirit, which in return for a warm place to sleep and a daily portion of food, he brought his hosts various goods to the cottage. He had the bizarre form of a small winged snake with a bird's head and a spreading tail, reminiscent of a molted broom. Every night the Aitwar would burst from his lair, fly down the chimney and disappear for hours. Circling over the village, glowing with a faint light, having set his sights on some farm, he would fly in there silently and stole whatever caught his eye. He wasn't picky about it. He took grain, money, household goods, but also hay, potatoes, or clover. When Aitwar glided loaded with goods back to his keepers, he was panting heavily, and from his kite, thousands of sparks were flying. This likened him to a shooting star, which is why the peasants, seeing this astronomical phenomenon, always said goodbye with the sign of the cross. They believed that this feathered demon was just returning from a successful thieving expedition.